Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in to 76ers Now. And on today's show, a couple blockbuster trade proposals from the folks over at Bleacher Report. Their NBA insiders proposing two potential big time trades for the Sixers for this upcoming season. Do they make sense? Would I do them? Should the Sixers make those trades? We'll dive into that here on the show. But before we do, if you're looking for a place to get all your Sixers news, rumors, analysis, and a whole lot more all in one spot, I encourage you to hit that sub button, join the channel for year-round Sixers coverage. We also have live shows and watch parties throughout the year. And the best part is, it is all 100% free. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. Currently at 23,657 subs and counting. Let's grow the family. Hit that sub button. I promise you will not regret it. So, this article from Bleacher Report actually connects back to an article we talked about a few weeks ago when they released their top 10 trade chips in the NBA. And within the top 5, you see two Sixers assets, if you will. Jared McCain, they ranked as the number one trade chip in the NBA. And then the Clippers pick in 2028 that Philly has from Los Angeles, they ranked as the fifth best trade chip. And they did this in terms of trade chips and assets you would send out to get a better player back in a deal. So not that McCain is the most valuable player in the NBA, but among players and picks that could realistically be moved for an upgrade, they considered him number one. And so now today they released an article proposing some trades involving those players. So let's begin with the pick, and then we'll get the juicy stuff on Jared McCain. So make sure you stick around. I've had some people, when we talked about the Sixers' future assets before, and in particular this draft pick, say that the Sixers don't have a whole lot in terms of future draft capital. They have some good young players, sure, but not a whole lot of maneuverability. They're really hindered by those big contracts. And while they are, I think people are underrating how valuable this draft pick could be they have from the Clippers in 2028. They have an old squad right now, man. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, they're already old players, and they're also not going to be under contract with the Clippers as of right now in 2028. And what did the Clippers do this offseason? I like some of the moves they made. They have a good squad for this season, but they brought in, outside of John Collins, a lot of older players like Bradley Beal, like Chris Paul, like Brooke Lopez. So who knows what that squad could look like in 2027-28. That pick could potentially be a top 5, top 3, maybe first overall pick that season, because almost none of the guys you see on your screen right now outside of Zubac are under contract and will be on that Clippers roster come 2028. Now the question becomes, would Daryl Morey be willing to trade the pick? Because it's dicey, right? Yes, they are the Clippers, and as I mentioned, they have an old roster, but being in LA, we know their owner, Steve Ballmer, is always willing to go out and spend money and make a big move. So while, yes, there is a chance, like I said, that it is a top pick, there's also a chance that its value will never be higher than it is right now, while it's still uncertain what that team will look like in 2028. If they make some moves, bring in some more players after the Harden Kawhi Leonard era is over, then that pick isn't quite as valuable and you didn't maximize its value. So this is the first trade idea using this draft pick that Bleacher Report cooked up, and it's one that we have talked about before on the show, but I think it's worth now even revisiting this idea of a potential Paul George for Lauri Markkanen swap, of course, sending that pick, as we mentioned, to Utah. A lot to kind of dissect here in this deal. And we'll start with the player the Sixers would be receiving in this trade in Lauri Markkanen, who I think has maybe started to get a little bit disrespected among NBA circles. Certainly playing in Utah doesn't get quite the national love that he might get around the association. But after a down year this past season, people are lower on him. But man, those first couple years in Utah, playing at an all-star level, almost 50, 40, 90, scoring 25 plus points per game, and can score from all over the floor. A really talented player, but has dealt with some injuries, or if you can call them injuries in Utah. Sometimes they just hold him out at the end of the season while they're tanking. And the numbers last year dropped. So people are lower on him at the moment. But I think he's kind of become underrated. And course, you're factoring in this whole conversation the Markkanen for Paul George swap. I think Markkanen is probably a better player right now than Paul George is anyways, and you're saving some money for the future. You see their side-by-side comparison of their contracts over the next few years. Yes, Markkanen does have one more year on that deal, but I mean, just look at the ages, which I have at the end of every year of the contract, right? This season, Markkanen making $46 million at just 28 years old. Paul George making 51 at 35 years old, and only gets worse from there. So I think you're getting a better player on a better contract, even if it's still priced a little bit too much money to be paying Lauri Markkanen. But look, as I mentioned, I think he's sort of become underrated. Right now in Eurobasket, playing for Finland, Lauri Markkanen is going stupid. 3 exhibition games, he's put up 42, 31, and 48, knocking down 3 threes, 4 threes, 7 threes. That's the kind of thing he can do at nearly 7 foot, and he also rebounds the ball very well. We've talked about the Sixers needing to find that starting foreman who can slide in next to Joel Embiid. And although Lauri Markkanen isn't a great defender or a rim protector, he's a good rebounder, he's got size, and a super dynamic offensive player, averaging 40 points, nearly 70% from the field, 54% from 3 in those 3 exhibition games. I know it's not against great competition, and it's just a 3-game sample size, but the talent is obviously there. This is a guy who can light it up any given night on the offensive side of the basketball. So look, as I've kind of been harping on in this conversation, I get he's coming off of a bad year. And I get that the salary number on its own doesn't look great for the kind of player he is. But it's probably a better salary number for the kind of player he is than for Paul George. And although it's 1 year longer in that contract, again, he is a younger player, a better player at this point in his career. And I think he could even flourish more on a team like the Sixers than he does in Utah, where, yeah, he's putting up a bunch of numbers, but his impact might not be felt as much there as it does for a winning team like Philadelphia. So look, I'm not willing to say I want to move off of Paul George today, right, and make this trade right now. But if we get into the season and we're approaching January, February, around that trade deadline area, regardless of what the Sixers' record is or their standing, if Paul George once again cannot stay healthy and we're not seeing a bounce back year from PG, I get wanting to hold on to the pick. I really do, because it could be valuable. But that Paul George contract would look even worse, and I think it would make sense for Philadelphia to get off that deal while they can and bring in a younger, more talented, and better fitting player like Lauri Markkanen. I think he would move the needle for this Sixers team. But what say you? Let's hear from you down in the comment section. Love to hear what you guys have to say, your opinions here on the show. Would Lauri Markkanen, if they trade him for Paul George, move the needle for the Sixers? Or is it not quite enough of a needle-moving trade for you to say, I'll give up that draft pick? Give me a simple yes or no down in the comment section. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about this Jared McCain blockbuster trade idea from Bleacher Report. We've talked about the idea of maybe trading McCain in the past. I'm not a big fan of it, but we'll get into what Bleacher Report had to say here in just a moment. Before we do, Tyrese Maxey jerseys, 50% off right now, the sweet 2024-2025 City Edition style, down from $120 to just $60. And these are the official Nike jerseys. Sometimes on Fanatics, you get the jerseys. They're not the Nike ones, and they're not quite as nice of a material, as nice of quality. These are the official Nike jerseys, and they are 50% off for a limited time only. Again, down from $120 to just $60. I think the design is clean. It's obviously the franchise player in Tyrese Maxey. You know, he is not going anywhere. So take advantage while you still can. If you go to chatsports.com/Maxey50, you see that link right down below me. It'll be in the comment section and description of today's show. You can get that jersey for yourself. Again, that's chatsports.com/Maxey50. 50% off on these City Edition Tyrese Maxey jerseys. So, Jared McCain. I've talked about this in the show before. I'm not a fan of giving up Jared McCain this early after what he showed last season. I know it was a small sample size, only about 20, 25 games for McCain in that rookie year, but when he was out there, he looked really, really good, and I think even better than what these numbers show, and these numbers are really good, right? 46% from the field, 38% from three. He was shooting it from all over the floor. Really impressed with his ability to create his own shots and get to the basket, get to that elbow free throw range area and pull up and knock it down, right? We knew he was going to be a good standstill shooter. Didn't know he was going to be this good of a movement shooter. And I know the meniscus injury, we'll see how he is able to respond from that once the season begins. But by all accounts, the recovery is going very, very well. So for me, I don't know about Daryl Morey, but for me, it would take a star level player in return if I'm giving up Jared McCain. I'm not giving up on him after 25 games into his rookie year for a player that's not going to move the needle very much. So, what does Bleacher Report decide to do with the player, by the way, that they had marked as their number one trade asset in the entire NBA? You think, oh, this is probably for a star player, right? Wrong. Bleacher Report's trade idea for the Sixers was to trade Jared McCain and Kel'el Ware Jr. for Keegan Murray. I don't want to disrespect Keegan Murray because I really like him as a player. I think he's a solid piece for a contending team. He's a guy that over the course of his career, numbers have gone down a little bit since he came into the NBA, shooting over 40% from three as a rookie, that prototypical stretch four that you think can light up the scoreboard. And year two takes a little bit of a jump in terms of points, but the efficiency goes down. Then year three, it just hasn't really been there, right? That upward trajectory for Keegan Murray. I think he kind of is the player that he is, and that is a lethal three-point shooter, someone who I think is better than the 34% he shot this past year. He'll always be a threat from beyond the arc, and could do a little bit with the ball, and does fit very well within the flow of an offense. But, man, not the kind of player I'm giving up Jared McCain for. Like, are you kidding me? I need a star-level talent. And on top of that, Keegan Murray is on an expiring contract this season. He'll be a restricted free agent after this year, probably looking to cash in since he's been a decent enough player to try to command 15 to 20 plus $million, and he's still young. So there's no way I'm giving up a cheap, cost-controlled talent like McCain, who, be honest, I think McCain is already a better player than Keegan Murray, and giving up Kel'el Ware Jr. as well for a player like Keegan. Again, I like Keegan Murray. He's a solid player, but if I'm going to make one of those two deals, I'm easily making the Lauri Markkanen deal because Lauri Markkanen miles ahead of someone like Keegan Murray, and I don't have to give up my young player in Jared McCain. But I want you guys to pick a side for me. We'll revisit these two trades we talked about here on today's show. The first one, of course, being the Lauri Markkanen deal. Philly gets Markkanen, gives up Paul George and that 2028 Clippers pick. If you would take that trade, type 1 down in the comments. Or if you do like Keegan Murray, and maybe you're not as high on Jared McCain, and you would make the Keegan Murray trade, type 2 down in the comment section. Let me know what side you sit on. For me, it's, again, a no-brainer. I'm pulling the deal on that Lauri trade, and I'm keeping Jared McCain around. Be sure to hit that sub button if the Sixers do make any trades. And as, of course, as we approach the NBA season and the NBA trade deadline, we'll always have you guys updated on all the latest Sixers news, rumors, analysis, and a whole lot more. So lock us in. Hit that sub button. I appreciate you all for tuning in to today's show, and we'll catch you next time right here on 76ers Now.